What's up, guys? It's your boy Texas Gaming here, and welcome back. Today we are once again revisiting, well, actually not once again, we're revisiting the Titanic. This time not just to explore or tell the story of the ship, but to get a little bit of a deeper insight of what happened on that fateful night back in 1912. So here we are, we have the Titanic loaded up. So let's go ahead. We already have passengers on board. Let's go ahead and tell them full ahead. So yeah, let's begin. Here we are on the RMS Titanic, the largest ship in the world when she set sail in April 1912. Over 882 feet long, the 175 feet from the keel, which is down here, to the very top of the funnel, and weighing more than 46,000 tons. She was nicknamed the Ship of Dreams, and for many, she was. Titanic wasn't just big. She was luxurious. A floating palace. First class passengers enjoyed a grand staircase, Turkish baths, gourmet meals, but not everyone got that same treatment. Third class accommodations were far simpler, though still better than many ships of the time. She set off from Southampton on April 10th, 1912, bound for New York, which is what we're doing right now. We have set off from Southampton, and we are now bound for the city of New York. Hopefully, in roughly a week, we will be saying hello to the New York City faithful. But just 4 days later, on the night of April 14th, disaster struck, and she hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic at 11:40 p.m. But just 4 days later, on the night of April 14th, 1912, disaster would strike. At around 11:40 p.m., she hit an iceberg on her starboard side in the North Atlantic Ocean. The collision opened a series of holes in her hull. The ship was designed. The collision opened 5 watertight compartments and flooding them completely. The Titanic was designed to stay afloat with 4 flooded, but 5. Well, 5 was far too many. That is when the fate of Titanic was sealed. There were over 2,224 people on board, but only enough lifeboats for about half of them. That means there were only enough lifeboats for roughly around 1,000 people. Roughly around 1,112 people. There was enough lifeboats. Meaning, as the ship sank, over the next 2 hours and 40 minutes, lifeboats left half empty, meaning the amount of survival number would drop. Making only 700 out of that 1,112 only 706 people would survive the sinking of the Titanic. And with the ship sinking, this forced many people were forced into the freezing water, which was not good. Some lifeboats were launched with just a handful of people in them. It is heartbreaking. At this point, many third class passengers, some were still unaware, but for most, they were still, a lot of them were still trapped below decks. Imagine being here in 1912 in the freezing dark with the ship slowly disappearing under you. There's nothing but ocean for hundreds of miles in any directions. Every creak, crash, sound like the ship taking her last breath. This view is beautiful, but terrifying at the same time. In real life, the band was playing music to calm passengers right about now. And Captain Smith, the inaugural captain of the Titanic, was last seen on the bridge before the ship went down. I've covered Titanic before, but still seeing her like this, seeing the sinking, still gives me chills. The rule back then was women and children first, and it was taken very seriously. And in the game, you can see we're slowly tilting by the bow. This is the start of the end. Meanwhile, let me tell you what's going on with the crew. The crew is inspecting the damage, and spoiler, it is not has suspected damage. Correction. The crew has inspected the damage, and spoiler alert, it is not good. As the bow gets more and more, it is noticeable. As the ship gets more and more deeper in the water, you can begin to tell what happened. The water is freezing, and if you end up in it, you only got minutes to live. Over the next 2 hours, the ship would slowly, for a while you wouldn't really know that the ship is sinking. Yeah, you have all of the commotion going on, but, and truthfully, a lot of people didn't know if the ship was truthfully sinking. And, at this point, lifeboats have yet to be lowered. You know, so thing is, when they are, some would only leave maybe half empty. In real life, the sinking was much faster than this. You know, especially, as she slowly lowered. Some people thought it was just a bump. They even joked about it. But as you can see, the ship is not in a good condition. Soon flares will be launched in an effort to alert any nearby ships to try to get the aid of the get to the Titanic as quickly as possible. Alright, now you definitely can feel the ship leaning. Walking in a straight line is harder. And their class passengers are only now being allowed up, but many are still locked below. Titanic may only have a couple more hours to live. Maybe even a few more minutes. She's going down to the bottom of the ocean. The bow is almost underwater now. The ship's nose is disappearing into the Atlantic. You can see that it is not good. Stuff is beginning to speed. The ship is beginning to speed up in terms of sinking. This is that iconic shot. There you have that iconic shot from the 1997 movie. And you can see the water just slowly beginning to flood the forward well deck and flooding the forecastle. A lot of it is underwater now. And slowly but surely going under. Now the stern. Look at the angle. Look at the shit on the stern. Is way up compared to the bow now. In real life, this was pure chaos. People were jumping overboard, desperate to get away. Keep in mind, the water was just 28 degrees, which meant survival was nearly impossible without being in a lifeboat. At this point, it is pure chaos. No one knows what to do. All the lifeboats, if they're not gone already, maybe only a couple remain. Everyone knew Titanic was going under, and there was nothing you can do to stop it. You can see the stern lifting into the air. This is Titanic's final moments. The crew desperately trying to launch flares, hoping that someone would respond, someone would see it and respond, come to their aid. A lot of the props are now, the propellers, the props, slowly making their way out of the water. The stern isn't high into the air, but it's getting there. It just, you can tell this is the final moments for Titanic. Now, all three propellers are out of the water, and now the first funnel will collapse. The stern is lifting it high into the air. This is the final stage. Lights are beginning to dim enough for about half, as the ship sank within the next 2 hours and 40 minutes. Lifeboats nearly half empty, and many people were forced into the freezing water. When the ship split in half, it ultimately, for a moment there was a brief time of hope. But around 2:20 p.m. on April 15th, Titanic broke apart and sank, taking over 1,500 lives with her. The temperature of the water was just 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which meant survival was nearly impossible without a lifeboat. The Titanic story isn't just about tragedy. It changed maritime law forever. Lifeboats for everyone, 24-hour radio watches, and iceberg patrols became standard because of what happened that night. Today we remember her as both of an engineering marvel and a sombering reminder of human vulnerability. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know what part of the Titanic story fascinates you the most. Thank you guys so much. Now it's just silence. Only cries of the people in the water remain. In real life, it was said you could hear the screams for miles and then suddenly nothing. This was the worst peaceful maritime disaster of all time. Over 1,500 lives are lost, and here we are over 100 years later, still telling her story. Because at around 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, Titanic broke apart and sank. Her story isn't just about tragedy. It changed maritime law forever. Lifeboats for everyone, 24-hour radio watches, and iceberg patrols became standard because of what happened that night. Today we remember her as both an engineering marvel and a sombering reminder of human vulnerability. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know what part of Titanic's story fascinates you the most. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.